It was just after 2 a.m., the kind of hour where the world feels paused. The highway leading to the store was completely empty. No cars, no lights, just darkness stretching in every direction. In my town, this 24/7 convenience store is the only place still alive at that hour, which somehow makes it feel even lonelier. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed softly, bouncing off empty aisles and polished floors. There were no customers, no voices, just the distant sound of refrigerators running. Everything felt normal at first, too normal. That's when I realized something was off. I wasn't the stranger sitting by the refrigerator. While I waited for my food, I started pacing the store. I never sit still for long, especially that late at night. The caffeine in my system and the silence around me made the space feel bigger than it really was. I drifted toward the back of the store without thinking, until something caught my eye. At the far end of the aisle, near the refrigerators lining the back wall, someone was sitting on the floor. At first, my brain refused to process it. I glanced away, then snapped my head back, convinced I'd imagined it. But I hadn't. There was a man sitting cross-legged on the ground, facing the refrigerator doors as if he were studying them. He wasn't looking for a drink. He wasn't reaching for anything. He was just sitting there. All I could see was his brown jacket and worn jeans. The way he sat felt wrong. Too still, too deliberate. No one sits like that in a convenience store, especially not in the middle of the night. I told myself not to overthink it, but curiosity got the better of me. I needed to see his face. I walked down the next aisle, pretending to browse the shelves. My plan was simple: turn the corner quickly, get a look, and move on before he noticed me. But the moment I stepped into view, his head snapped toward me. The movement was so sudden that I froze. His eyes were wide, unnaturally wide, and completely empty. Not angry, not confused, just blank. His lip was twitching violently, as if his body couldn't stay still even when he was sitting. He looked twisted, tense, like every muscle was coiled tight beneath his skin. We stared at each other for a few seconds that felt much longer. The store seemed to shrink around us. The hum of the refrigerators grew louder, filling the silence between us. There was no expression on his face, no reaction at all, just that dead, unblinking stare. Every instinct in my body screamed that something was wrong. I broke eye contact, turned sharply, and walked away. I didn't look back. All I wanted was my food and to get out of that store as fast as possible. But even as I stood at the counter waiting, I could still feel his eyes on me, like he hadn't moved at all. And somehow, that was the most terrifying part, the dead look in his eyes. Even after I turned away, I couldn't shake it. That stare, it stayed with me. It wasn't curiosity, or anger, or confusion. It was something else. Something lifeless. I had seen people high before, jittery or wide-eyed. But this wasn't that. His eyes were hollow, like he was staring through me, not at me. There was a stillness in him, a frozen calm. But beneath it, I could feel tension coiled, waiting. Waiting for, I didn't know what. His posture was unnatural. Every muscle in his body seemed to be working against itself, twisted and tight. His lips quivered slightly, but it wasn't from cold. The store was warm. It was almost as if his body was betraying him, like he wasn't fully in control. We locked eyes for what felt like an eternity, the world around us fading. Every sound, the hum of the refrigerators, the faint rustle of my own clothes, even my heartbeat, became amplified. I couldn't tell if he was breathing. I couldn't tell if he even was alive. Then came the worst part, the feeling that he knew something about me. Something I hadn't realized yet. That blank stare wasn't passive. It was watching, assessing, waiting for a moment to act. I had to remind myself to breathe, to move, to get away. But my feet felt heavy. My mind raced, calculating the safest path out without drawing attention. Anything could happen if he followed me. Anything. When I finally tore my eyes away and turned down the aisle, my stomach sank. I knew this wasn't the kind of person who just sat in a store at 2 a.m. for no reason. This was someone dangerous. When I finally tore my eyes away and turned down the aisle, my stomach sank. I knew this wasn't the kind of person who just sat in a store at 2 a.m. for no reason. This was someone dangerous. And I had just made eye contact with him. For the rest of the store visit, every step I took, every glance I made toward the back, that dead look haunted me. It was in my vision, in my mind, and in the silence of the empty aisles. I knew one thing. Once you've looked into eyes like that, you never forget it. And you never feel safe again. the decision to leave quickly. I knew I couldn't stay there any longer. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to move, to get out of that store before it was too late. My food wasn't even ready yet, but I didn't care. The hum of the fluorescent lights, the quiet flicker of the refrigerators, the empty aisles, they all suddenly felt like a trap. That man's gaze lingered in my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that one wrong move, one glance back, and something would happen. I tried to act casual, pretending to browse snacks as I edged toward the counter. My heart was pounding so loud it felt like the store could hear it. My hands trembled slightly, and I could feel a cold sweat forming on my neck. Each step I took seemed louder than the last. I kept my eyes discreetly on him, making sure he hadn't moved. But it wasn't just the fear of being caught staring. It was the realization that this wasn't normal. Not even a little. People don't sit on store floors staring at refrigerators for no reason. Something about him was wrong. The moment my food was ready, I grabbed it without even looking at the cashier. Every nerve in my body was on high alert. I walked briskly toward the door, keeping my back straight and pretending like I had somewhere urgent to be. But I was hyper-aware of every sound. The rustle of his jacket, the click of his shoes, even the faint shift of a shopping cart. When I reached the door, I hesitated for just a second, long enough to glance over my shoulder. And for the briefest instant, I thought I saw him move. Or maybe I imagined it. My stomach dropped. My hands tightened around my bag. I pushed the door open and stepped outside, finally letting the cold night air hit my face. Relief washed over me, but only partially. I had left the store, but I knew that whatever this man was, whatever he had planned, it wasn't over. The last scene in the parking lot. I thought I was safe once I stepped outside the store, but the parking lot told a different story. From the corner of my eye, I saw a movement, quick, deliberate, and impossible to ignore. My stomach dropped. It was him, the same man from inside. He wasn't just standing there anymore. He was running, full speed from the store entrance toward the far end of the lot. My pulse skyrocketed. I fumbled with my keys, hands trembling, but my brain locked onto one thought. Get in the car and get out now. I threw the doors open, sliding into the driver's seat, my eyes glued to the rearview mirror. He made it to a pickup truck parked at the far end. Without hesitation, he jumped in and started the engine. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. My foot slammed the gas pedal. The asphalt blurred beneath me. Every instinct screamed danger. Something about the way he had moved inside the store, the unnatural stillness, the dead look in his eyes, told me he wouldn't stop. He wanted to chase, to catch, to hurt. And now, he was behind the wheel, closing in fast. I kept glancing at him through the mirror. Headlights flashed violently. A honk tore through the silence of the night. He was mirroring every move I made, every swerve, every acceleration. I realized then that this wasn't random. This was intentional. He had singled me out, and now he was following me. Relentless, unpredictable, and terrifying. The empty highway that had felt so peaceful on the way and now felt like a trap. Every shadow, every curve, every stretch of darkness became a threat. And in that moment, I understood. I wasn't just leaving the store. I was running for my life. Darkness and silence on the highway. The moment I merged onto the highway, a strange kind of terror settled over me. The road stretched endlessly into darkness, flanked on both sides by nothing but empty fields and the occasional flicker of distant lights. My car's engine hummed loudly in the quiet night, each rotation of the tires echoing like a warning. At first, it felt peaceful, too peaceful. The silence was unnatural, heavy, almost suffocating. And then I realized the headlights in my rearview mirror weren't fading away. They were getting closer, and with every second, my chest tightened. I told myself to slow down, to stay calm. Maybe it was just another driver. But the way the headlights followed my every movement, matching my turns, my swerves, my speed, made it clear. This wasn't random. This was deliberate. My mind raced. There was no traffic, no witnesses, no escape. Just me, the dark stretch of highway, and the person, or thing, behind me. Every instinct screamed at me. Don't stop. Don't look back. Survive. The world narrowed to the asphalt in front of me and the looming threat behind me. The hum of my tires, the engine's roar, the occasional flicker of the dashboard lights. They became the soundtrack of a chase that had already taken on a life of its own. And in that endless dark, I knew the truth. If he wanted me, if he decided to act, There was no one coming to save me. No store, no police, no one but myself. Every mile forward was a gamble. Every second was a test. And the highway, once empty and serene, had become a corridor of terror, headlights following from behind. At first, I thought I was imagining it, just a trick of the dark. But the headlights in my rearview mirror didn't waver. They stayed there, bright and relentless, growing larger with every mile. My stomach dropped. The hum of my tires on the empty asphalt felt deafening. The highway, once a path to freedom, had become a stage for something I couldn't yet understand. Every instinct screamed, "Don't stop, don't slow down, survive." I tried to rationalize it. Maybe a late-night driver lost on this desolate road? But the way those lights matched every curve, every slight turn, every increase in speed, made it impossible to convince myself otherwise. This was no accident. Panic started to creep in. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. My heart hammered in my chest as I realized I couldn't shake them, not by slowing down, not by speeding up. They were tracking me, studying me, waiting for the right moment. Then came the horn. A single, sharp honk that pierced the silence like a gunshot. My pulse spiked. The vehicle behind wasn't just following. It was aggressive, challenging me, forcing me into a fight I hadn't asked for. I floored the accelerator. The sedan beneath me strained as I pushed it faster, the night blurring around me. But the headlights stayed, relentless and haunting. Every mile forward was a gamble. Every second was a countdown. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just driving. I was being hunted when I realized it wasn't the police. At first, I thought the flashing lights and honking were law enforcement. Relief mixed with anxiety. I hadn't been caught yet, but I'd be safe soon, right? I slowed down instinctively, heart still pounding, ready to pull over and explain myself. But as the vehicle drew closer, the shape of the truck became unmistakable. My stomach sank. The headlights weren't police lights. The horn wasn't warning me. And the vehicle wasn't chasing indiscriminately. It was tracking me. It hit me like a punch to the gut. The man from the store was behind me. Every instinct screamed the truth. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. He had singled me out, followed me from the parking lot, and now he was making his move. Panic surged. My hands trembled on the wheel as I calculated options. Swerve? Accelerate? Pull over and hope he keeps driving? Nothing felt safe. Every possibility carried the same terrifying weight. He wanted to hurt me, and there was no backup, no escape. I floored the gas, my sedan straining at its limits, the highway stretching endlessly ahead. The truck mirrored every turn I made, every acceleration, as if it anticipated me. It wasn't a game, it was a hunt. For the first time, I understood the reality. I wasn't being chased by a random stranger. I was being stalked by someone who had decided I was the target. And the full weight of that realization hit me like ice water. I was completely alone, with only the roaring engine beneath me and the relentless truck behind me, facing death at 100 miles per hour. The speedometer climbed past 100 miles per hour, and a wave of pure terror hit me. The highway stretched like an endless black ribbon ahead, but the real threat was behind me. The truck, relentless, closing the distance with every heartbeat. At that moment, every sound, every vibration of the car, every flicker of the dashboard lights was amplified. My hands were white-knuckled on the wheel, my breath ragged, every nerve screaming. This could be the last moment of my life. I swerved, trying to shake him, hoping the curves of the road might give me an edge. But he wasn't just following. He was attacking, ramming his truck at me, forcing me to dodge, to react instinctively, to survive. Time slowed. Every second stretched into eternity. I thought of the people I loved, of everything I wanted to do, and realized that in a flash, it could all be over. My survival instincts kicked in fully. No hesitation, no thinking, only reaction. I braced for impact, swerved sharply, slammed the brakes, and the truck roared past me, swerving wildly in the process. For a moment, the world went chaotic, the blur of lights, the screech of tires, the violent shakes of the steering wheel. When he finally spun out and crashed off the highway, the silence that followed was almost unbearable. My chest heaved, my hands still shaking, my heart pounding like it might burst. But I was alive. Alive, yes, but the terror didn't end. That night had shown me something I would never forget. At 100 miles per hour, facing someone who wants to kill you, there is no safety. Only the raw, gut-wrenching fight to survive, the deliberate collision. Even after the first near miss, I knew it wasn't over. The truck wasn't following me by accident. It was deliberately trying to hit me. Every honk, every flash of the high beams, every aggressive swerve told me this was no longer a chase. This was an attack. My mind raced. I was trapped between the speeding asphalt beneath me and the unpredictable force behind me. Slamming the brakes too hard could flip the car. Swerving wrong could send us both off the highway. And yet, doing nothing was not an option. Then it happened. The truck rammed me. The impact rocked my sedan violently, sending me skidding across the lane. My hands gripped the wheel tighter than ever, knuckles white, heart hammering so loud I thought the truck might hear it. I realized in that instant, my life was in his hands, and only my reactions would save me. Every instinct kicked in. I swerved, dodged, and braced for the next hit, knowing that if I made one mistake, it could be the last. My mind shut off everything but survival. Every instinct kicked in. I swerved, dodged, and braced for the next hit, knowing that if I made one mistake, it could be the last. My mind shut off everything but survival. The fear, the panic, the exhaustion, all of it became fuel. When the truck finally shot past me, spinning out of control and off the highway, I could barely comprehend what had just happened. I was alive, but only barely. Every muscle in my body was trembling. My car was damaged, my hands were shaking, but I had survived because I refused to hesitate. That night taught me the brutal truth. Sometimes, survival is only about one thing: reacting faster than death itself, without a split-second life or death decision. In that instant, everything slowed down. The truck was barreling toward me again, and my mind had to make a choice in less than a heartbeat. Turn right? Brake? Swerve left? Any wrong move would mean total disaster. My hands gripped the wheel as though it were the only thing keeping me alive. Every nerve in my body screamed, "React now, or you're done." My chest tightened, breath short, vision narrowed to the asphalt and the looming threat behind me. I remembered every detail from earlier: the dead look in his eyes, the unnatural stillness, the way he had been stalking me from the store. Nothing about him was predictable. And yet, I knew one thing: hesitation would kill me. I slammed the brakes, swerved hard into the left lane, praying the sedan would hold. The truck shot past, spinning wildly before regaining control, but I could see the rage in every motion, the intent to continue the attack. For a brief moment, time felt suspended. My heart pounded like a drum, my hands shook uncontrollably, and my mind screamed at me to keep moving, to never stop. In that split second, I realized the brutal truth: survival wasn't luck. It was decision, reaction, and nerve. I floored the gas again, racing down the empty highway, leaving nothing but darkness and the memory of the chase behind. Shaking hands on an empty highway, the car finally stopped, and silence swallowed the night. The highway stretched endlessly in both directions, empty, quiet, and deceptively peaceful. But inside the car, the storm hadn't passed. My hands were trembling uncontrollably, still white-knuckled from the chaos moments before. My chest heaved, my mind replaying every second of the chase: the dead stare, the aggressive ramming, the terrifying speeds. The adrenaline was fading, but it left behind a cold, lingering fear, the kind that settles deep into your bones. I tried to calm myself, breathing slowly, gripping the wheel for support, but every small noise, the rustle of the wind, the distant hum of tires, even my own heartbeat, felt amplified, threatening. I realized just how close I had come to losing everything in those moments. The empty highway offered no comfort. It was just me, the dark, and the memory of what had almost happened. I forced my shaking hands to steady, knowing that I needed to move, to get home, to be somewhere safe. But even as I drove on, the image of him, the dead look in his eyes, the relentless pursuit, stayed with me. That night had changed something inside me. I wasn't just shaken physically. I was shaken mentally. I knew I would never look at a dark, empty road the same way again, calling the police after getting home. When I finally reached the safety of my home, the adrenaline began to ebb, but the fear lingered. My hands were still trembling as I fumbled with the keys, heart racing, chest tight. Every shadow in the quiet house seemed to mock the chaos I'd just escaped. I locked the doors behind me, but the sense of being hunted didn't leave. The image of the truck, the dead stare from the store, and the violent chase replayed in my mind on a loop. For a moment, I just stood there, trying to breathe, trying to convince myself I was safe. Then I grabbed my phone. Calling the police was the logical step, but even that simple act felt heavy. Then I grabbed my phone. Calling the police was the logical step, but even that simple act felt heavy. How do you explain what happened without sounding insane? How do you tell them you were chased at high speed by someone intent on killing you, armed only with instinct and a car? I gave them my statement as best I could, detailing every moment, every terrifying detail. My voice trembled, but I forced it steady. They listened, taking notes, asking questions. I knew the security cameras at the store would help, but I still felt the weight of the night pressing down on me. Even after the call ended, relief was partial. I was physically safe, yes, but mentally, I knew the fear would linger. That night had left a permanent mark, and though I hoped the man would be caught, part of me knew that some experiences change you forever, no matter the outcome. Questions that still have no answers. Even weeks later, I'm left with questions I can't shake. Why him? Why me? What was his plan that night? And why had he singled me out in that empty store? I replay the events constantly, the dead stare in his eyes, the unnatural way he moved, the aggressive chase on the highway. Every detail feels loaded with meaning I can't decipher. It's like pieces of a puzzle that refuse to fit together, leaving only fear and uncertainty. I think about the small things I noticed. The way he sat on the floor of the store, the abruptness of his movements, the intensity of his focus. None of it made sense. None of it had a clear explanation. And that's the worst part. Knowing that someone out there can act so violently, so unpredictably, without reason, and that the world may never make sense of it. I'll never forget the sound of the tires screeching, the flash of headlights, or the way my own instincts had to fight to keep me alive. But the questions linger, and they always will. Even now, I can't help but wonder. If I hadn't reacted in that split second, if my decisions had faltered even slightly, would I even be here to tell the story? Some questions will never have answers. And that's the part that haunts me the most.